My beloved child, the night Daniel lost everything was colder than winter itself. The silence inside his small apartment carried the weight of broken dreams, unpaid debts, and prayers that seemed unanswered. Near midnight, while rain whispered against the windows, the lights above him flickered like dying stars. Then, through the darkness, he heard a voice soft yet commanding, calling his name as though it had known him long before his birth. His breath froze. The screen of his phone suddenly awakened without touch, revealing trembling words. You were never alone. Fear gripped his soul, yet beneath the terror stirred something ancient, holy, and impossible to ignore. How is your child's health today? Please share in the comments so we can all pray for each other. The old church stood at the edge of the town like a forgotten memory buried beneath time itself. Its stone walls were cracked by storms and age, and the wooden cross above the entrance leaned slightly beneath the weight of countless winters. Yet something drew Daniel there before sunrise, as though invisible hands were guiding his weary soul through the thick morning fog. The moment he stepped inside, the air changed. It smelled of ancient wood, candle smoke, and rain-soaked dust. Though abandoned by the town for decades, the sanctuary carried a strange and sacred stillness. Near the altar knelt an elderly woman clothed in dark garments, her silver hair falling softly beneath a faded shawl. She prayed in whispers too quiet to understand, yet every word seemed to echo through the empty cathedral like a hidden hymn. Daniel hesitated, feeling an unexplainable trembling deep within his chest. Without turning toward him, the woman spoke calmly. You have finally come, child. You were chosen long ago. Daniel froze. A cold chill moved along his spine. He stared at the woman in disbelief, convinced madness had taken root inside the forgotten church. Before he could answer, another voice shattered the silence. There's no such thing as chosen people, a young woman said firmly from the doorway. Daniel turned to see Elena, a physician from the city hospital, standing beneath the pale light filtering through broken stained glass. Her sharp eyes carried intelligence, untouched by superstition. She stepped forward confidently, glancing at Miriam with restrained frustration. People see miracles when fear clouds their judgment, Elena continued. Pain makes people desperate enough to believe anything. Miriam slowly rose to her feet. Though old and fragile in appearance, there was something regal in her presence, something ancient and immovable, like the roots of mountains. She looked at Elena with gentle sorrow rather than anger. Then, explain this, Miriam whispered. At that exact moment, the dead candles surrounding the altar suddenly ignited on their own. After the night within the forgotten church, a shadow seemed to follow Daniel wherever he walked. The city streets looked unchanged, yet something unseen had awakened around him. Sleep abandoned him completely. Each night he found himself trapped inside dreadful visions where faceless figures stood beneath blackened skies, whispering words that pierced deeper than knives. You will fail. No one has ever truly loved you. The voices did not thunder like demons from old legends. They arrived softly, almost tenderly, slipping into his thoughts like poison poured into sacred water. Daniel began questioning his own sanity. Even during daylight, he heard faint whispers behind crowded streets and empty hallways. Mirrors seemed darker somehow, and strange movements lingered in the corners of his vision before vanishing like smoke. One storm-filled evening, Marcus visited him unexpectedly. Unlike Daniel, Marcus carried himself with sharp confidence born from ambition rather than faith. His expensive coat smelled of cigars and rain, and his eyes gleamed with the hunger of a man who trusted only power and wealth. You're drowning, Daniel, Marcus said calmly while pouring himself a drink. And faith won't pay your debts. He offered Daniel a path out, easy money, through hidden dealings that operated beneath the city's respectable surface. No violence, Marcus claimed. No real victims. Just desperate men taking opportunities before others could steal them first. For a moment, Daniel listened. The temptation wrapped around him like warm fire during winter. He imagined freedom from fear, from hunger, from sleepless nights. Yet deep within his spirit, another presence stirred quietly, resisting the darkness creeping toward his soul. That night, the nightmare returned stronger than before. Daniel stood alone inside the abandoned church, while unseen voices laughed from the shadows. The candles bled black wax across the altar, and from somewhere beyond the darkness came a whisper colder than death itself. Bow once, and all your suffering ends. Daniel awoke gasping for breath, his hands trembling violently. Outside his apartment window, thunder rolled across the heavens. Then suddenly, through the storm, the church bells rang on their own at exactly 3 in the morning. Rain fell heavily upon the sleeping town as midnight approached, covering the narrow streets in silver reflections beneath the storm-dark sky. Daniel stood once more before the abandoned church, unable to resist the invisible force drawing him back to that sacred ruin. The air felt strangely alive, charged with a tension that pressed against his chest like an unseen hand. Beside him stood Elena, her coat wrapped tightly against the cold wind, though her sharp eyes remained fixed upon the ancient building with uneasy curiosity. "You're letting fear control your mind," she said firmly. "There's always an explanation." Before Daniel could answer, the church bells exploded through the silence. One deafening toll echoed across the valley. Then another, and another. Elena's expression instantly changed. The old bell tower had long been sealed shut, its rusted mechanisms broken for decades. Yet the bells rang with impossible strength, shaking the very ground beneath them. The storm above seemed to pause, as if heaven itself had turned its gaze toward the forgotten sanctuary. Then it happened. The wooden cross at the peak of the church began to glow, not with fire, not with lightning, but with a strange golden radiance unlike anything born of this world. The light spread slowly through the rain and darkness, bathing the cracked stone walls in warmth while the surrounding shadows recoiled like living things afraid of the dawn. Daniel fell speechless. For one sacred moment, the pain inside him grew still. Elena stared upward, her breathing uneven. Though fear flickered in her eyes, pride refused to surrender. "It's electricity," she whispered quickly. "Static energy, atmospheric reflection. There has to be a scientific cause." Miriam suddenly appeared behind them beneath the archway of the church doors, her weathered face calm as ancient scripture. "Science explains creation," she said softly. "But it cannot explain the Creator." Elena turned sharply. "Miracles are stories people invent because they fear uncertainty. And yet," Miriam replied, "why does your voice tremble if you truly do not believe?" The bells continued ringing violently overhead while thunder rolled across the heavens like the footsteps of something eternal drawing near. The storm had passed, yet the air around the abandoned church still carried the strange heaviness of something unseen lingering near. Deep beneath the sanctuary, beyond a narrow staircase hidden behind the altar, Miriam led Daniel into a chamber untouched by time. Dust floated through the dim candlelight like wandering spirits, and the stone walls were covered with faded scriptures written in trembling ancient ink. For the first time, the old woman allowed the sorrow in her eyes to surface. "I once had a family," Miriam said quietly. "A husband, 2 daughters." Her voice weakened, like fragile paper caught in the wind. "They were taken from me during the winter plague nearly 40 years ago." Daniel remained silent as she slowly touched an old silver cross hanging around her neck. "That was the night I first heard his voice." The candles flickered violently. Miriam explained how grief had nearly driven her into madness. For weeks, she wandered between life and despair until one midnight. While kneeling alone inside the church, a voice spoke clearly from the darkness. "You are not abandoned." Tears filled her aging eyes as she recalled the moment. "No human voice carries such peace," she whispered. It felt older than the earth itself. Daniel tried to remain rational, yet every word stirred something deep within him, something ancient and painfully familiar. Then Miriam approached a wooden chest hidden beneath a torn cloth. With trembling hands, she removed an enormous book bound in cracked black leather. Strange symbols were carved across its surface, faded by centuries. The moment the book opened, the chamber grew unnaturally cold. Inside were pages filled with names, hundreds of them. Beside each name were dates, warnings, and passages written like prophecies. Daniel leaned closer, his heartbeat slowing. Then he saw it, his name, written in dark ink upon yellowed parchment, older than anyone living. Below it was a single sentence. "When the bells awaken and the cross burns with light, the chosen soul shall return to the forgotten house." Daniel staggered backward in horror. Elena, standing near the doorway, stared at the ancient page in stunned silence. For once, even science had no words to offer. The town began whispering Marcus's name with equal parts admiration and fear. Within only a few months, the man who once wandered the streets with empty pockets now arrived in shining black cars, dressed in tailored coats and gold watches that gleamed beneath the city lights. Expensive restaurants opened their doors to him. Politicians shook his hand. Men who once ignored him suddenly bowed their heads with respect. Yet behind Marcus's smile lingered something hollow, something restless and dark, as though his soul had traded peace for power. Daniel watched it all unfold with growing torment. Each morning his own life seemed to crumble further. Bills piled upon his kitchen table like silent accusations. Sleep abandoned him completely, leaving dark circles beneath his weary eyes. Worst of all was the silence from heaven. The signs that once filled him with wonder now felt distant, buried beneath confusion and exhaustion. One bitter evening, Marcus invited Daniel to the highest floor of a newly purchased building overlooking the city. Rain streamed across the towering windows while jazz music played softly in the background. Everything around Marcus radiated wealth and control. "You still believe suffering makes you holy?" Marcus asked, pouring 2 glasses of expensive whiskey. "Look around, Daniel. Faith keeps people weak. The world belongs to those willing to take what they want." Daniel remained quiet. Deep inside, the words wounded him because part of him feared they were true. Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Work with me. One decision and all your pain disappears. No more fear, no more struggling, no more begging heaven to notice you." At that moment, the whisper returned, stronger than before. "He is right." The voice slithered through Daniel's thoughts like smoke beneath a locked door. "You pray and still suffer. You were abandoned long ago." Daniel gripped the edge of the table as his pulse thundered violently. The room suddenly felt colder. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the walls behind Marcus, twisting like living things beneath the dim lights. That night, the nightmares became unbearable. Daniel saw himself standing before the glowing cross, while unseen voices surrounded him from every direction. Thousands of whispers spoke at once, promising power, wealth, escape from pain if only he would surrender. Then from the darkness emerged a tall figure without a face, cloaked in moving shadows. The whisperer. It did not speak with anger, but with terrifying gentleness. "You were never chosen," it murmured. "You were only lonely." Daniel awoke, screaming shortly before dawn. Meanwhile, at the city hospital, Elena witnessed something impossible. An elderly woman suffering from terminal illness had been brought into emergency care. Doctors had already accepted that death was near. Machines weakened, breathing slowed. Even Elena, devoted to science above all else, could offer no hope. Yet Miriam entered the room quietly, carrying only a small candle and an old Bible worn by time. She placed a trembling hand upon the dying woman's forehead and whispered a prayer too soft for anyone to fully hear. Then the monitors changed. Weak heartbeats strengthened. Color returned to the woman's face. Within moments, the patient opened her eyes and breathed deeply, as though awakening from a terrible dream. The entire room fell silent. Elena stared at the monitors in disbelief, desperately searching for a medical explanation, but none came. For the first time in her life, certainty abandoned her. Somewhere deep beneath her reason, a door she had kept locked for years slowly began to open, and far away, beneath the church bell tower, Daniel knelt alone in the darkness, torn between heaven's silence and the seductive promises whispering from the shadows. The fall came swiftly, like a kingdom collapsing in a single night. Daniel discovered too late that Marcus had used his name in secret dealings hidden beneath layers of deception and greed. Every document, every transfer, every accusation pointed directly toward him. The little money Daniel had left vanished into frozen accounts and legal threats. Friends who once greeted him warmly now crossed the street to avoid him. Neighbors whispered when he passed. Some mocked him openly, calling him a fool who chased ghosts and miracles instead of reality. Even Elena could no longer find words to comfort him. For days, Daniel wandered the city alone beneath gray skies, carrying a weight too heavy for any man to endure. The whispers never stopped now. They followed him through crowded trains, empty alleys, sleepless nights. "You were chosen for nothing. God has abandoned you. Look at what faith has done to your life." each sentence pierced deeper because despair had already weakened his soul. The sacred signs, the glowing cross, the mysterious book, all of it now felt like cruel illusions meant to lead him into ruin. For the first time since entering the forgotten church, Daniel began to hate the voice that once gave him hope. That night, a violent storm swallowed the town. Thunder rolled endlessly across the heavens while rain struck the streets like falling stones. Drawn by pain stronger than reason, Daniel returned to the abandoned church one final time. The ancient doors groaned open beneath the force of the wind, revealing darkness deeper than any he had ever known. The sanctuary stood empty, cold, silent. Daniel staggered toward the altar, drenched by rain and trembling with rage. Candle holders crashed to the floor as he fell to his knees before the old wooden cross. "Why?" he shouted into the darkness. His voice echoed through the cathedral like the cry of a broken soul. "I trusted you." Lightning exploded outside, illuminating the shattered stained glass windows in flashes of blood-red light. "You said I wasn't alone," Daniel screamed again, tears streaming down his face. "Then where are you now?" No answer came, only thunder. The storm above the church intensified violently, as though heaven itself had entered into battle. Wind howled through the broken halls while shadows twisted along the stone walls like living creatures awakened by suffering. Daniel collapsed fully onto the floor, overcome by grief so deep it felt ancient, older than his own life. Then the whispers returned. Not one voice, hundreds, mocking him, laughing at him. "You were never worthy. You were foolish to believe. Vow to despair and your pain will end." Daniel covered his ears, crying out in agony as darkness closed around his mind like chains. And then, everything stopped. The wind ceased. The thunder fell silent. Even the shadows froze. A radiant light slowly emerged behind the altar, warm and golden like the first sunrise after endless winter. The broken church seemed to breathe again beneath its glow. Daniel lifted his tear-filled eyes toward the cross as a voice spoke gently through the silence. Not loud, not wrathful, but eternal. "Do you still trust me?" The words pierced through his soul with terrible beauty. Daniel trembled uncontrollably. In that sacred moment, standing between despair and faith, heaven and darkness, he realized the true battle had never been against poverty, betrayal, or fear. It was the battle for his soul itself. Marcus was no longer the man Daniel once called a friend. Wealth had transformed him into something colder, sharper, almost unrecognizable. His office tower overlooked the city like a throne built above the suffering of ordinary men, its dark glass reflecting storm clouds that never seemed to leave the sky. Rumors followed him everywhere, now disappearances, corruption, ruined families, yet no accusation ever touched him. Power shielded him like armor. But Daniel saw something far more terrifying than greed. Marcus's eyes. There was no peace left within them, only hunger. When Daniel and Elena entered Marcus's private chamber high above the city, the atmosphere itself felt unnatural. The lights flickered faintly, though no storm touched the building. Shadows gathered strangely behind Marcus's chair, moving as though alive. Elena, once devoted entirely to logic, felt a chill crawl beneath her skin. "You still cling to faith?" Marcus asked with bitter amusement. "Look around you. Money commands this world, not prayers." Daniel stood silently for a moment, studying the man before him. Beneath Marcus's confident voice lingered exhaustion, like someone being consumed from within. Then Daniel heard it, the whisper, not in his own mind this time, behind Marcus. Soft, breathing, alive. "You see it too, don't you?" Daniel whispered. Elena's face paled. For a brief second, the shadows behind Marcus twisted into the shape of a towering figure without a face. The room instantly grew colder. Marcus slammed his fist against the table. "There is no God protecting you," he shouted. "If your God is real, why does suffering exist? Why are the wicked rewarded while the faithful crawl through misery?" His voice trembled not with confidence, but rage. Daniel stepped forward slowly. Though wounded and exhausted, something noble had awakened inside him after the storm within the church. His fear no longer ruled him. "Because peace was never promised through wealth," Daniel replied quietly. "And power without light destroys the soul." Marcus laughed harshly. "Peace?" he spat. Peace is for weak men afraid to take control. No, Elena suddenly said. Both men turned toward her. For the first time, her voice carried uncertainty instead of arrogance. I've seen things science cannot explain. The silence that followed felt sacred and dangerous all at once. Outside, thunder rolled across the heavens, while the city lights flickered below like dying stars. And deep within the shadows behind Marcus, the whisperer stirred, waiting for the final battle between darkness and light to begin. The night of the miracle arrived without warning. A violent storm descended upon the city with a fury unlike anything the townspeople had witnessed in generations. Rain poured from the heavens in endless waves, while thunder shook the earth beneath trembling streets. Near midnight, lightning struck the central power station, plunging the entire city into darkness. Within seconds, chaos erupted at St. Raphael Hospital. Machines failed. Emergency lights flickered weakly. Children cried through darkened hallways while doctors rushed desperately between rooms overflowing with panic. In the intensive care unit, patients dependent upon life support hovered between life and death as backup generators began failing one by one. Elena stood frozen in horror. For the first time in her medical career, science offered no immediate answer. "We're losing them," a nurse screamed through tears. The storm outside intensified violently, as though unseen forces battled across the heavens themselves. Deep within the darkness of the powerless hospital, shadows seemed to move unnaturally along the walls. Some whispered that strange voices could be heard through the halls, soft and poisonous, feeding upon fear. Then Marcus arrived. But the powerful man who entered the hospital no longer resembled the confident ruler of the city. His face was pale, his hands trembling uncontrollably. The whispers that once promised him power now tormented him endlessly. Every shadow carried accusations. Every silence carried madness. "It won't stop," Marcus muttered weakly, gripping his head. The voice, "It won't leave me alone." Daniel looked at him with sorrow instead of hatred. For in Marcus he no longer saw an enemy, but a man devoured by darkness. Suddenly the final generator failed. Complete darkness consumed the hospital. Screams echoed everywhere. Monitors flatlined. And somewhere above the storm, the church bells began ringing again. Onebuan. Slow. Ancien. Terrifying. Daniel closed his eyes. Everything inside him trembled between fear and faith, but this time he did not run from the darkness. He stepped forward into the center of the hallway while rainwater leaked through shattered windows around him. Then he fell to his knees. "Lord," he whispered desperately, "if you are truly here, please save them." The storm outside roared like an ocean crashing against the earth. Elena watched him silently, tears filling her eyes. For so long she had trusted only what could be measured, touched, explained. Yet standing in that darkness surrounded by dying people, she realized human knowledge had limits. Daniel raised his trembling hands toward heaven, and suddenly, light appeared. Not electric light, not fire. A golden radiance slowly spread through the hospital corridors like dawn breaking across the world after endless night. The walls glowed softly. The air grew warm. Fear itself seemed to retreat beneath the brilliance. Then, the impossible happened. Machines powered on by themselves. Heart monitors awakened. Breathing returned to failing lungs. Throughout the hospital, patients opened their eyes as though called back from the edge of death itself. The nurses stood speechless. Doctors dropped to their knees. And Elena, overwhelmed by a presence greater than reason, slowly knelt upon the floor for the very first time in her life. Tears streamed down her face as her trembling lips whispered words she never believed she would say. "God, forgive me." Nearby, Marcus collapsed completely. The whispers surrounding him turned into screams only he could hear. He covered his ears, sobbing like a broken child as the darkness he once embraced abandoned him beneath the overwhelming light. At the far end of the corridor, Daniel stood bathed in golden radiance while thunder rolled across the heavens above the city. And for one sacred moment, the storm bowed before something eternal. Morning arrived gently after the night of wonders, and for the first time in many years, the city awoke beneath a sky untouched by storm clouds. The streets were quiet, almost reverent, as though the world itself had witnessed something too sacred for ordinary words. News of the impossible events at St. Raphael Hospital spread rapidly, yet no explanation ever satisfied those who had stood within that golden light. Marcus was gone. Some claimed they saw him wandering toward the northern hills before dawn, dressed in black and speaking to himself like a man chased by invisible shadows. Others believed the darkness that had consumed him finally carried him away. No body was ever found. Only silence remained where his empire of power once stood. Daniel no longer searched for answers, with fear in his heart. In the days that followed, he returned often to the abandoned church upon the hill. Yet it no longer felt abandoned. Warm candlelight now glowed behind the cracked stained glass windows each evening, and the ancient bells rang peacefully at sunset instead of midnight. People slowly began entering the sanctuary again, the broken, the grieving, the lost, all drawn by rumors that hope itself had returned to the forgotten place. Elena came too, not as a skeptic anymore, but as a humble soul standing at the edge of mystery. She still carried her knowledge of medicine proudly, yet now understood that wisdom and faith were not enemies. Many nights she remained beside the altar in silent prayer, searching not for proof, but for presence. One evening, as golden sunlight faded through the church windows, Daniel stood alone before the restored cross. The burdens that once chained his soul had vanished. He finally understood the truth hidden beneath every trial, every whisper, every storm. The greatest miracle had never been wealth, visions, or supernatural signs. It was the transformation of the human heart. Tears filled Daniel's eyes as peace, unlike anything earthly, settled upon him completely. The wind moved softly through the cathedral, carrying with it a voice both ancient and gentle. The same voice that had followed him through darkness from the very beginning. I was with you all along. And beneath the eternal glow of candlelight, Daniel smiled as the bells of the old church rang toward heaven once more. In life, many people spend years chasing success, approval, money, or power, believing those things will finally bring peace to their hearts. Yet the story of Daniel reminds us that the greatest battles are often invisible: fear, loneliness, doubt, and the temptation to give up when life becomes painful. True strength is not found in controlling everything around us, but in protecting the light within us when darkness tries to take over. Sometimes hardship is not meant to destroy us, but to transform us into wiser, stronger, and more compassionate people. The story also teaches that faith does not mean a life without storms. It means having the courage to keep walking through them without losing hope. For young people, this is a reminder not to let social pressure, comparison, or temporary success define their worth. For adults carrying burdens, it is a reminder that failure and suffering are not the end of the journey. Real miracles often begin quietly through forgiveness, inner healing, restored relationships, and the decision to rise again after falling. Even in moments when we feel abandoned, there is still a light guiding us forward, often closer than we realize. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please like and comment one if you find the story meaningful. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow more similar stories. See you in the next part.